If you've been paying attention to the news, then you know that the Democrats are continuing with their lunatic selves. I mean, just because they don't have the White House, the Congress, and the Senate, it doesn't mean that Democrats and liberals in general aren't going to continue to try to cause all kinds of hell. Which brings me to this RFK Jr. and his Senate confirmation hearing. And they've decided to use a few assets to tear down his name, most notably his own family members. Yes, his own relatives have been attacking him. One who's the grandson of JFK decided to mock his voice because, he has a funny sounding voice from a particular illness that he has. And then you have Caroline Kennedy, the daughter of John F. Kennedy, who basically called him a predator based on what pets that he kept. And this is just the latest example of how quickly liberals will just turn on their own family members for their liberal ideology. Because this isn't just the case of, oh, they're doing it because they don't want him confirmed. We see this all the time. The main culprits, whether it's, turning your father in so they can get locked up over January 6th, or ending relationships, marriages, kicking your children out, these are mostly done by liberals towards relatives who aren't liberals. And hell, in some cases, the relative that they're attacking, they are they view themselves as liberal, but not as lunatic liberal as their family member is. But again, if you're not lockstep in every psycho agenda that the Democrat Party is really is re, re, is willing, ready, and able to push, then you're seen as right wing, which is why you had a number of people who call themselves classically liberal decided to vote for Trump, which in my book they're still insane libtards, but they're just against certain issues like the trans thing. They really lost a lot of allies on the trans issue, which brings me to this Senate confirmation hearing for him to be the head of the health department, essentially. And I feel like this one will be one of the more difficult confirmations because, as we know, big pharma, they are in the pockets of all of these politicians. And big pharma has had a heavy influence on society. I mean, just from the advertisements alone. But if we're going to continue to go along with this narrative where people are all of a sudden against big pharma, then the general public, you would think, would be on his side. But we know with liberals, they'll say one thing in 1 second and then contradict it in the next. Because the very same people who just recently cheerleaded a CEO who worked within the health industry being murdered on the streets are the very same people that don't want RFK Jr. to get confirmed. Even though, unlike a lot of other celebrities, he's not a Johnny come lately when it comes to caring about the environment and health. He's been at this thing for decades. And you would think, based on liberal Democrat Party narratives, it would have been the Democrats that would have gave him a shot to be at the head of the health department under a Democrat president. But they never did because they are deeply in the pockets of big pharma. The Republicans are as well, but thing is, they have Donald Trump, and he has truly helped, at least temporarily, reinvent the Republican Party. But for all the people that love to make this noise now that they take issue with Big Pharma, they want the CEOs killed, then this would be an opportunity for them to live up to that fact. But we know that's not the case because, again, these are the very same people that cheerleaded the CEO being murdered are the same people that cheerleaded people getting fired over not taking COVID vaccines. So that's the one consistency you can get out of liberals. Their one consistency is inconsistency, which is why ultimately they don't stand for anything but chaos. And these chaos agents, that being his relatives, are just the latest example of it. But also they're also a reflection of what happens to notable families. Usually they fall after 2 to 3 generations. You know, and if it wasn't for RFK Jr., the Kennedys would pretty much just be a bunch of trust fund babies and socialites who really don't do anything but live off their family name. Whereas RFK Jr. is the last hope for them to extend and continue their names. But anyway, we'll see ultimately what happens. If he gets confirmed, I'll actually be surprised.